Good morning, Randy, K7AGE. Welcome to Pacificon. We got a full room and glad everybody's gotten up early this morning. I think I've been coming here, I think it's 5-6 years, but I missed the Pacificon that was up in Reno. And I think just about every year I've given my PSK talk as well as some other talk here. And just plug my afternoon talk is on Hellschreiber. So if you've never tried that or don't know what that is, 1 o'clock back in this room and we'll do this again. So I'm going to talk about PSK-31. I basically borrowed another fellow's presentation and made a lot of tweaks to it myself. If you can get a hold at me, it's easy, K7AGE at K7AGE.com. And I'll try and answer your emails. I may not get to you right away. It may be a week, but they do kind of stack up sometimes, especially after an event like this. A little bit about me. First licensed in 1968. I had a novice, probably when I was a sophomore in high school, I think. And that was a 1-year license back then, and I worked a bunch of CW. This was at my dad's station. I was older than this when I had my license. And I couldn't use the Invader because I needed to be 75 watts with a crystal controlled radio. So I think I had one of these little Miko AT1s. Anybody had one of those? You wish you kept it? They sold for what, $14.95 as a kit. Now they go for like $250 up on eBay. So video's kind of been in my blood from basically high school. I built a camera for electronics project. I worked as a TV cameraman and as an engineer on a local remote company while I was going to college. Worked in a couple college studios at RIT in Rochester. And then I joined Grass Valley Group in '76. I was a field engineer, engineer on different products and such, and systems and things. Spent 22 years with Grass, and 14 years ago moved over to Envision, which builds routing switchers. It's kind of an offshoot of Grass Valley Group. About 4 years ago, we were bought by Miranda, and this summer we were bought by Belden. I'm still trying to figure out how to get my free coax. I haven't cracked that one yet. And the thing is, the Belden equivalent of me is coming up to the factory when I'm going to Massachusetts next week. So I kind of miss that contact. I started with YouTube videos back in, was it 2006? Now over 6 years of posting videos up on YouTube. YouTube is 7 years old. So I'm one of the early pioneers, and Ham Radio on YouTube is a pretty niche group, pretty small when you look at all this stuff. I think every second, somewhere between 42 and 50 hours of video is uploaded to YouTube. So there's an awful lot of stuff out there. Most of it is not worth watching, I think. So what is PSK? This is nothing new. This has been around since 1998. Peter G3 PLX did the original software. And what makes this kind of neat is that it uses less bandwidth than, say, teletype. You can use lower power. It really lends itself to QRP modes. The hardware interface that you develop between your radio and your computer can be used for many other digital modes. So once you've stepped into one, you're ready to go on all sorts of different modes. PSK uses, well, the PSK stands for phase shift keying versus, say, like frequency shift keying, where you're changing a frequency as when you use RTTY. We're actually just going to flip the phase around. And it uses a special coding called Vericode, and we'll see what that is. And timing is everything. How many of you have the new QST that just came out? There's a great PSK article in here by, I've read it like 2 or 3 times because I always learn something new. Thomas Brooks KE1R. And that's where I actually learned what the railroad tracks, where they come from. We'll see that. So the phase shift keying, basically what happens, we're going to send the information not in an amplitude or a frequency shift, but some point in the waveform we're going to change the phase. And that's going to allow us to detect this easier with the lower signals. The keying rate's about 31.25 bits per second. When you convert this to typing, it's around 50 words a minute. So it's a keyboard mode, and it's basically faster than what most people can type. And if you've never heard it, hopefully I don't blast your eardrums out here. We'll see what happens. There we go. So that's basically what's coming out of the computer when you're transmitting. And if you listen real carefully, you can hear that warbling sound. Of course, when you hear this on 20 meters, you hear like 10 or 12, 20 people at the same time. But that's okay. So why the 31 dot something bits per second? Well, it's a frequency that's easily derived from the sound cards that are in the computers. And also Thomas talks about that in the QST article. It reduces the bandwidth. To reduce the bandwidth, the phase shift is at the zero crossing, so you don't have any out-of-bound energy. If you tried to flip the phase at an edge of the waveform, it would create some out-of-bound, so we do it at the zero crossing. A 0 is a phase shift, and a 1 is no phase shift. That's how we send our 1s and 0s. The Vericode text coding, also developed by Peter, and what he's done here is that the characters you use most often take the least amount of data to send. So it's kind of a text compression. Something we send a lot of, an E, is much shorter than something we send less seldom, like a Z. Lowercase letters are shorter than the uppercase letters. And it supports pretty much the whole ASCII character set, upper and lowercase, all the numbers, and it supports backspace. If you've never seen this on the air, it's so weird to see the text coming across and then it backs up as somebody corrects it and they send it again. So here's a table of the Vericode. Of course, we send a lot of spaces. That only takes a single bit. If we look at it like a lowercase a up here in the top right, that's a 1011, that's 4 bits, whereas an uppercase looks like about 7. And I think when you send the @ signal for your email, is it on here? Yeah, it's up at the top here. That's one of the longest characters. So when you're typing lowercase, you're actually able to transmit the data faster than if you're in caps lock. So turn your caps lock off, quit yelling. Not that you're probably really going to notice a whole lot of difference on the air. Performance. The chart shows here kind of a relative signal to noise. So basically what we're trying to show here is that the PSK signal, you can deal with a weaker signal. It can take and decode it much more into the noise. You're able to take and decode it with a much weaker, much noisier signal than you are, say, like teletype. And anybody that runs teletype or RIDI knows that a lot of them run their amps all the time so that you can get a good printout on the other end. With PSK, you can go all over the world with 50 watts or less. The power is concentrated in a 31 hertz bandwidth versus 250 for RIDI, even though with a 170 cycle shift, you still got some sidebands, so you can pack a lot of PSK QSOs in a given area on the band. Just a little bit of relativity here for various power levels. You know, if you're using sideband with 100 watts with a 20 dB signal to noise ratio, if somebody was doing that with teletype, it'd be about 8 watts you would need. An equivalent with PSK, you can get by with 1 watt. So people say that they can see stuff printing out on their computers that they can't hear. So basically 25 to 50 watts, you can pretty much go anywhere you want. PSK is great for QRP. If you want to go out and do QRP work, but you're not a CW guy, you can use your laptop or an iPad now to do PSK work. So it allows you to use like a FT817, a KX3 if you don't want to use the paddle to do basically low power QRP work. The bandwidth, here we're showing over on the left the waterfall of several teletype signals, again with the 170 cycle shift. It actually has two tones that it shifts between, whereas in the PSK I see there's one there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe a ninth on the side, 10, 11. There's at least 12 signals that I'm seeing in the equivalent bandwidth there. Okay, so what does it take to get on PSK? Well, any, let's say, modern transceiver will work. You need something that's fairly stable, but I would say almost anything that's solid state, anything that you would buy today, it has no problems. Maybe some of the old tube type radios, if you let them settle for an hour, you might be able to use them. You can tell if your radio is stable when you look at that waterfall. If they're all going down straight, you're stable. If they're all going off to the side, that means everybody is not drifting. You're the one that's drifting. Then you need an interface to connect the PC to the radio, and you can build these easily. And there's lots of websites. There's some links on the handout I passed around where you can find schematics to do basically audio isolation with transformers, maybe a potentiometer to vary the level. If you don't want to build something, you can buy sound card interfaces from many different vendors. The Tigertronics is very popular. They have one that's a USB where it has the sound card in the box. It's a real plug and play. But Rig Blaster, Rascal, there's all sorts of different companies that you can buy commercial interfaces. For the computer, you need some software. There's 3 here that I'll highlight. There's all sorts of them out there. The one I use is Digipan. It's one of the originals. It's really small. I think it's like 700K. It's free, it's simple, it works perfectly well. The other end of the spectrum, I'll say, is Ham Radio Deluxe. It has both the whole radio logging, rig control stuff, and then it has Digital Master or DM780, which does PSK and, I don't know, a dozen or two other modes. It was free, now it's moving to commercial. I'm not sure. I'm not a user of Ham Radio Deluxe. The other one that's getting a lot of traction these days is FL Digi, and this is an open source free program, and it's available to run under Linux, Windows, and I believe guys are able to run it on their Macs as well. Chris would probably know. Yes? Okay. The Mac people know that. And it does PSK as well as many of the other digital modes. So the sound card interface, we need to do basically 2 things. We need to get the audio from the computer to the radio and from the radio back to the computer. And somehow we got to key the transmitter to put it into, to transmit. And this can be done, I'm going to say maybe 3 different ways. A program like Digipan would use one of the control bits on a serial port. If you have any of those on your computers anymore, you'd use either RTS or DTS, and it would just toggle that up and down, and you would build a 1 transistor interface to go into your push-to-talk line. A lot of people use Vox in the radio, because when the sound card program goes in the transmit, audio comes up, and then the Vox and the radio will take and trip. What you got to be real careful there is that you don't want "you've got mail" tripping your Vox and coming out in the PSK area. Everybody will take and hear that. So when I'm running PSK, I usually shut down all the other apps and stuff that may be making noise. If you end up with several sound cards in your radio, you can tell the Windows stuff to use the one for all your Windows sounds and use the other one for all your ham stuff. And again, I mentioned the commercial interfaces. There's anything from probably $30 to several $100, depending what you want to spend and how fancy. You can build them yourself pretty simply. I would guess for 10 bucks. I was down at my brother-in-law's house a couple years ago, and we kludged one up on the workbench in half hour, and even built the one transistor keying circuit inside the DB9 hood. Some of the newer transceivers, especially the ICOMs, now have taken the sound card chip, which may be in your computer, may be in like a signal link, and they now have put it inside the radio. So now all you need is a USB cable to go from the rig over to your computer. And when you plug it in, it appears as another sound card to your sound settings. And some programs like FL-Digi and Ham Radio Deluxe can also use that USB link, because in the radio side, it looks like a serial port for control. So now you can both control the radio and send the audio over the single cable. And I played with that a little bit this summer. I had a loaner 7200 from ICOM, and I got that to work with FL-Digi. So it's really kind of neat to just have one simple USB cable. But the trick there is that the software has to know to send the serial transmit command to the radio. It's not going to use the simple logic level push to talk signal. And on the ICOMs, it's kind of weird, but you can't use the Vox in the radio to key the radio from the sound card chip that's inside there. So you basically have to get the radio in to transmit. Okay. So again, you have your sound card. If it's in the computer, you take the line out and line in, connect it through your little audio interface box. Could be a couple transformers to help and prevent ground loops. If you really want to get into a different way of preventing the ground loop, Jim Brown, who gave one of the antenna talks yesterday, has a whole paper about how to deal with the grounding and isolations and stuff with your computer and your rig. In this type of mode, you can use the box and the radio. One of the things you have to watch out for here is that your line output of the computer is a much higher level than the microphone input in your radio, so you're probably going to need to attenuate the line output of the computer. So a couple resistors and a voltage divider or a pot that you can crank around, well, they can reduce that. You really don't want to run the line level out just one tick above the noise level in the computer, because now you've got your signal down close to the noise floor in the computer. So you're better off having a stronger signal out of the computer, attenuating it separately, and then feeding it into the mic. Receive going the other way is not as critical. Usually the sound card volume setting is enough. And a lot of the radios now have a fixed output level jack on the back of your rig, so that makes it nice so it's not dependent upon the volume control. Because even though it's just a cool mode, sometimes you just want to turn off the sound. You don't need to listen to it. So here's a video, which if you've seen my PSK stuff, you've seen this, but this is the little introduction to get you receiving. Hi, Randy here, K7AGE. Today we're going to do an introduction to PSK-31. My goal is to get you receiving PSK-31 in a very few minutes. This is not difficult, it's easy to do. We're not going to build any interfaces today. We're going to do some very simple things, and you should be able to receive PSK-31 in about the length of time of this video. So what we're going to do here now is, I feel like Mr. Wizard, we'll go to the Digipan website. We'll download the software, we'll install it on the computer, we'll do some simple setup, simple configuration, and then be able to receive PSK-31. Download Digipan 2.0 700K. Just click on that, and I'm going to save the file. Click on Open. And I get the Digipan setup window. It says this will install Digipan on your computer. It's recommended, blah, blah, blah. Close everything else, just click Next. And it says, do you want to launch Digipan? Say yes. It then opens Digipan, and it pops up this window for personal data. And in here, you can put in your call sign, K7. I'll put yours in, not mine. K7AGE tab. I'm going to put my name in here. K7AGE, California. So now it knows a little bit about me. Going to change my window sizes here, so I'm going to bring that line up, and I'm going to bring up down here the waterfall. So this area here is the received data, this is where I transmit, and this is where the waterfall. This is where I see the spectrum. So I need to do now, I got to hook up my audio interface for the system. So what I have here, it's all tangled up, doesn't matter, but it's just a very simple sound card headset with a microphone. So I'm going to plug it into the microphone input here, and the audio is my FT817. So let's go ahead and turn it on, and I'll turn the volume up here. What can we hear? And we want to tune the radio to 14070 upper sideband. That's where the PSK activity will be. Here we go. We're getting close. And right there. Upper sideband 14070. Perfect day. Listen to all that activity. Now, let's zoom out. We're going to make the sound card interface to the radio. Now watch this. This is very high tech. We take the microphone, and I'm just going to put it on the speaker. If everything's working, you should have signals in the bottom down here. I still have the microphone control open here. You can see if I turn this all the way down. So let's go ahead and close this and see what's going on here. Right now, just a bunch of garbage on the screen. The radio is set at 14070. That's the very left part of the screen. Then up 1 kilocycle is 1000. So this is all the audio between almost DC and 1000 kilohertz. To tune PSK-31, we don't tune the radio, we just leave it set at 14070. But since we have this audio spectrum here, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like a 6th signal there is weak. So to tune on this one over here, which apparently looks to be fairly strong, I just click in the red here, and I click in the center of the lines, and the little red box appears here, and if everything's working, we should see real text appearing in the screen. So that was pretty easy. Got a wider shot here. Somebody calling CQDX here, DE6H1 Mike Walter, Mexico station, and he dropped off. Is he getting somebody coming back to him? Yes. See, also PSK-31 supports upper and lower case. So there we are. We got you to find the software, showed you how to download it, how to configure the audio, pick your soundboard, select your microphone, get the radio, the microphone near the radio, how to set the level so you see the vertical lines, all the signals in the spectrum and such. Then you just click on the line and you should be receiving. Again, you set your radio to 14070 upper sideband and you should be hearing a lot of signals. Okay, so how many people have done that from the video, put the microphone on the computer? Yeah. I've actually gotten a couple emails from people that do it the other way for transmitting. They put the radio microphone on the computer speaker. It works. It's not optimum, but hey, try it out and see if it's something you want to do. So again, the acoustic, coupling here, I just showed, the play with this. You can try it out just using the rig speaker with a PC's microphone. If you have an iPad, you can get PSKer. I think it's a $2.99 PSK app, so you can just then hold your iPad in front of the speaker and it will start decoding. Yeah, I mentioned that some people have actually done it the other way around using the Riggs mic. You can use Vox for keying. So the advantage of this, it's absolutely no extra equipment required. It's totally free. Real good isolation, but not very good audio isolation. You know, if the phone starts ringing in the shack, that's going to be going out over the air. So you really want to have something you really want to start doing, you want to have a direct connection. So an interface can be as simple as just some capacitors to block any DC voltages between the computer and the radio. Not much there. This is out of the help file from Digipan, I believe. If you are getting hum being transmitted, you may have a ground loop, so maybe a transformer in the audio out line and the audio in line to the computer would help isolate the grounds between the radio and the computer. You can get these at Radio Shack, and probably if you have an old 2400 baud modem, you can probably tear that apart and steal the transformers out of that. Would probably work. This is the simple push-to-talk keying circuit. Again, it can use either the RTS or sometimes the DTS. Some of the software allows you to select which pin you want to control, and a transistor and a couple diodes. And if you're good enough, you can build this inside a DB9 hood to plug into the serial port on the output of the computer or on a USB to serial port adapter. And then the output of this can go into the push-to-talk line on your transmitter to key up the radio. Box switching, talked about a little of this before. This is the simple way. Just put the radio in box. When the computer goes into transmit, the audio turns on the line output, and it'll put the radio into transmit. Want to make sure you have enough box delay that it's not chattering. Typically not a problem. So, you know, set your box up to work properly. And like I mentioned on the ICOM radio, even though it has the sound chip inside, the Vox circuit only works on the front mic connector. It won't work on the audio in or the sound card chip that's inside the radio. So that causes a lot of confusion. If you look at some of the Yahoo groups for the radios, when people are trying to get this to work, you'll see people struggling with this sometimes. And sometimes Vox is very useful because just getting a serial port on a computer or a laptop or a pad today is pretty hard. Setting up your station, you want to set up your receive audio. This is done through typically the Windows sound mixer or typically in the PSK software. You can open up audio level control and adjust that. You just basically want a nice range in the waterfall. You don't want it all real bright and you may be overdriving it. You don't want it too low and not seeing a signal. So that's pretty forgiving. The transmit side, you have to pay attention because you don't want to be overdriving your transmitter. And what happens, instead of seeing those nice two narrow little tracks, when you overdrive, that widens out. Next thing you know, you're taking up 2, 3, 4 times the spectrum, and that's overdriving. There's a lot of different ways you can set that in your radio. Look at your instruction manual, but basically what you want to do is have the radio working in its linear mode. So you don't want too much audio going in and causing the radio to go into clipping or flat topping or overdriving. And one of the ways you can adjust this, as you turn up your audio level, you'll see your power level go up, and then it will stop going up as you keep increasing the audio. You've got too much drive. At that point, back your audio down until you see it drop off the maximum power. Some radios will tell you there's so many bars on the ALC. Some radios, they want you to set the power level first and such. But basically, you can crank your audio level up, so the power go up, it'll stop going up, turn it down until it comes off the limit, then maybe turn your power level down. And then when you're on the air, you can ask the other station, does my signal look okay? Am I clean? And you'll see, when you get on there, you can see people that have some pretty raunchy looking stuff. And again, you gotta watch out that you don't have all your general sound, Windows sound or Mac or whatever, things going out, so you don't want you got mail going out, because you are using the upper sideband mode of your transceiver, so you have the full audio spectrum that you're transmitting, but you're only transmitting that single tone that we're varying the phase on. So again, shut down the programs that make noise, or figure out how to separate your sound sources to your different sound cards in the radio or inside the computer. Okay, where do you find people? Well, 20 meters is the most popular frequency. I mean, even if the phone side of the band is dead, go look on 14070 and you'll probably see somebody there. And you can still work. And that's where I probably make the majority of my QSOs, but there's typically, you can think of 70 up from the bottom is where you find people. So again, we talked about in the video tuning a PSK signal. You don't tune your radio dial. The software back in '98 that you kind of did, and that made it real hard for people to get that real narrow signal tuned properly. But Peter's breakthrough with the Digipan software was you saw the whole spectrum and you click to tune. So basically, over here is I have the radio offset here a little bit, but over on the left would be the 14070, then up a kilohertz, up 2 kilohertz, and then you'll see it fade off. And this is your filter in your radio. You know, that's the bandwidth of your filter, and that's what's blocking signals from the upper end here. And again, to tune, you just click on one of these, and then it will start to take and decode up there on the screen. When you see this action here, where it goes dark across the screen, that is the AGC in your radio. And somebody just came on here with probably a strong signal. It may have been this fellow here, and he stopped transmitting, and your AGC opened up again, and you see the difference in the noise level here.
So do you want to turn your AGC off?
No, you don't have to. But that's what's happening when you see that on the screen. One of the issues is that since we're using the sideband filter, you know, if you're working this guy over here and say he's really weak and somebody up here comes on and drives your AGC down, you may lose him there. So there maybe it's a time there that you could turn it off and try. Or some radios you can vary your filter using the DSP. So you may start off looking like this on the band, but you may be able to lower or take and reduce your width of your filter and zero it in over here and use that to cut out the other stations outside your filter. And my old FT990 was really good for this because you could select filters independent of mode. So I could go into the CW filter and use the IF shift and move down there and pull that one signal out.
So if I'm understanding this right, your radio's tuned to that center frequency.
Yep.
You're passing that band.
Mm-hmm.
And then the software is moving around within that band width?
Yes, the software moves around when you click in here. So the software,
How does it do that?
software magic. Okay, so what happens here is that the software is seeing the whole bandwidth, and it's displaying everything. In fact, you can go into a mode with Digipan, a lot of the other software, and it will actually decode every one of these signals up here on the screen. That's nice. You can find somebody calling CQ and then go to a single. So if I click here, let's say this one here, the audio is, if that was really at 14070 on the left, this would say it'd be 1150 hertz up from the low. So that's a tone at that frequency. So now the software knows I'm going to decode that frequency, and it also tells the transmit side to make an audio tone at that frequency to transmit. I click over here, now I'm decoding a different audio frequency, and when I go to transmit, I'm generating a frequency up here instead of down there. Does that help?
It's an audio frequency.
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
an
yeah.
RF frequency.
Oh, yeah. So what you're transmitting,
Between audio and RF.
okay, your RF is set at 14070. So if you're talking voice and upper sideband, your lower frequencies are close and your higher frequencies in your voice are further out. So instead of voice frequencies, we're going to make tones in the computer. So the low frequency tones will be over on the left and the higher frequency tones will be over here on the right. Okay. So if I transmit a 1 kilohertz tone and my radio set for 14070, I'm actually putting energy out on 14071.
Is it premature to ask if these systems will work on UHF, VHF systems?
Certainly no reason not. It'd be perfectly fine.
Can you use them on the FM?
Sure. And the problem with FM, you'd have the whole spectrum to yourself. Because your channel just allows one transmitter to go through. So yeah, you could do this on 2 meters to talk to like one other guy, but you're using the whole FM channel space to send a very narrow audio tone. If you go over to sideband up there, it'd be the same thing. But yeah, it's just audio. It doesn't care about bands.
Is there much activity in the VHF?
My hunch is probably not.
Yeah, I was wondering about operating systems for the computers. I got an old Apple that won't update anymore, but I don't recall what Apple was.
I'm not a Mac guy. You have any hints, Chris?
I'm not sure. I just downloaded PSK or almost. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, one other.
In Santa Cruz County, we're starting to use FLDigi with handhelds and laptops
Okay.
on 2 meters for Gary's work.
Okay.
And
Good.
the cable gets cut, and there's no communication to get through anything.
So you're using PSK or RIDI? Which mode in the?
Using, it depends on
what you're doing?
what the activity
Okay.
is. But it's not PSK, we're using one of the other modes.
Yeah. There's lots of modes
And
in
it
there.
fills
Yeah.
the forms and everything automatically
Okay.
for us to,
Yeah.
to hand off to the hospital.
Yeah, some of the MCOM stuff have it all tied together, yeah. So some other things on the screen here. Again, this is what they call the waterfall. This shows where I can, I forget why I'm seeing 3 here, but typically there's a window that shows, there's windows where it shows where I'm typing in. There's another area which shows what's being sent out, and then another area here to show what's being received. Just about all these programs have their own built-in simple logging program. Some are kind of somewhat smart. If you double click on a call sign, it knows it's a call sign. If you double click on something else, it assumes it's a name. If you shift and double click, it'll assume it's a QTH. Signal reports are all 599. Up here in the top are what they call the macro buttons, and every program provides these, and these are buttons that when you press that, it'll send out a series of texts. So you may have one to call out CQ, the next one over looks like it sends his call twice, DE, then my call. I don't know what Ernie's for, there's a back to you, and people use these to put in their brag tape of all their equipment and such. One of the things I see a lot on the air, which kind of bugs me, is that a lot of the PSK QSOs end up being exchange of macros. So I send macro 1 out and back to you, and I get macro 1 back from the other guy, so now, so you do that a couple times, and people are just transferring pre-canned text, and then 73s, I'm off to the next one, you watch the QSO and you see the same thing again. Ask the guy a question, reveal something about yourself, get a conversation going.
That makes it easy to use, the macros make it easy to use the handheld telephones like the,
Sure.
like the iPhone or the Droid.
Yeah.
Because you just hit your macro
Yeah.
and it's going out, then you're not trying to poke in on the little buttons.
Yeah, the one that bugs me is the brag tape thing that I believe comes out of Ham Radio Deluxe, where it says operator was assembled or something and a date, and it's about 10 lines of stuff, and I really don't care that you have a 4-core Pentium something with 8 megs, blah, blah, blah. I think my brag stuff is like running TS2000, 45 watts, beam antenna, digipan, and it fits on less than a line, and then go on and talk to somebody. Go ahead.
How are messages stored as files? Is there a directory system or file protocol for setting
I think you could save the text to a file, just a text file. If you turn that on, I would imagine different programs provide different things.
FLDG has a 213 form, reads automatically.
Okay. A lot of the log files you can save as an ADF, so you can pull it into your, possibly your main logging program. I just switch between this and TRX Manager and enter the data in.
Is there a convention for duplex? Because if you're typing away and someone else is typing back to you, you've got to wait.
You can type in, and when you see him turn it over to you, you can just hit the TR button here, and it starts your transmit buffer out.
But is there a convention for him turning it over to you? Like over?
Oh, you'd see his call sign, or your call sign DE, his call sign, and probably a K.
Okay.
Pretty much standard ham stuff, yeah. And then you'll see, the signal will go away. It'll just drop off here, and that's an indication his transmitter's shut down. Okay, let's get through these. I have a couple of slides here about PSK, QRP, so a signal link and an FT817 works well. I had one of these for a while, Small Wonder Labs. They have a complete, it's in this box, and that's a complete 2-watt, 20-meter PSK transceiver. And you just plug it into the laptop, and you're up and running. And this was a great radio. I had a lot of fun with this. And I bought the 817. I sold the Small Wonder Labs. I kind of wish I kept it now because he doesn't sell these anymore. But Dave, what's his name, he says something new is coming out soon. I know he sold a lot of these things. So it's a little kit. You got to wind the toroids, but the thing worked. Kind of the latest state of the art of PSK QRP is a K3, where it decodes both PSK as well as teletype in the radio. It puts it in the display right here. It's kind of short. It's only 7 characters, I think. But to transmit, you use the paddle and you send Morse code into it, and it then sends it out as PSK. And I'm sure they'll show you this here at the show. And the bottom is a fellow using the PSKer on the iPad, and he's has this little Apple connector to USB with a little USB sound card dongle there, and wired it into the radio. And you can see the waterfall display there. Where to find more information? Some of these links are in the handout I sent out. Of course, Google is a wealth of information. Of course, my videos, I have 4 or 5 about PSK. And just show you that QRP does work here. I have a little video from when I was in England a couple years ago. Hi, Randy here, K7AGE in Lyme Regis, England. I'm over here for a week, and I've got my portable antenna here set up. And this is a super antenna, MP1 vertical. Has an adjustable coil and a vertical top, and 4 ground radio wires that run out. I just have it with a clamp here to the railing. Inside here, I have my little Acer Spire 1 laptop running Digipan. I have my FT817 radio. I have my Signal Link USB interface. I have a little power supply to run the radio. I also brought along my VX8R, which I have been able to use a GPS with APRS here in the UK when we're out traveling around. And let's take a look at the laptop and see what's on the air here. Okay, here's a station calling CQ. RX1, let's see here, RX1AY. I answered the CQ to a RW3DQC. His name is Andy in Moscow, working from Lyme Regis here, running portable. In Lyme Regis, it's on the coast here in England, running my 817, running 5 watts. Antenna is a portable vertical. So I've loaded this into macro. 599. To operate in England, all I need is a sheet of paper from the FCC, since there's a reciprocal agreement between America and a lot of countries. So I just need to carry the one sheet of paper and my license. K7AGE Randy. Wish you DX. Looks like it's going to be a short QSO here. 73s, bye, and see you later. DERW3 David Quebec Charlie. Thanks for the DX from the UK today. 73. I got one contact anyway. Answered another CQ from a YU1LC. His name is Rade, R-A-D-E. Weather is cloudy and snow. Temperature now +2C. And back to me. Okay, so I'm answering him. Name here is Randy. Okay, he's coming back to me. All is okay, dear Randy. Operator model 1950.
Ah, that's Ham Radio Deluxe. Operator model
This
number.
is 1967. I answered a CQ working a SQ9 NIU station. His name is Chris. QTH Rezenkow, located in JO90. He was having trouble copying me, so we'll see how this goes. He doesn't know I'm running 5 watts yet. Okay, he gave me a 539. I mean a 359. So we go back to him. Chris, you're 599 here. Okay, he's come back to me and he says he's running a FT950 with 30 watts, 40 meter long wire antenna with a homemade antenna tuner, an AMD 3.2 gig computer, mixed W, 34 years old, been on the ham band since 2007, so he's rather new. Today in South Poland, overcast, temperature 5 degrees, and he says, do I watch your videos on YouTube? he's one of my viewers. So I've answered him back. I said, yes, I am the YouTube guy. I have lots of videos posted. Many have seen my PSK videos. I'm over in the UK for a week and just got the radio set up today. Having fun working a little DX from my simple station. Thanks for watching my videos. I'm making a video now, and turned it back over to him, and he came back and said, congratulations, your videos are very interesting. I wait for more. I know a lot of people are waiting for more. Thanks for the Beat PSK QSO. Hope to meet you again on the waterfall. And I answered them back saying, thank you for copying my 5 watts. You're my 3rd contact I've made today, 3rd or 4th. And 73's in.
I'm not sure how long this goes on for, but it's just. It was, oops, is that the end? But it was really kind of interesting being from California. And, is that the last slide? Oh. Sorry about that. Oh, that is, okay, that is the end. I was on 20, yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of a neat experience being from California and working all these Europeans, seeing all these European calls coming across, which typically I don't do that here because I'm not getting over the East Coast wall and all that. So, you know, it looked like really good DXs, maybe 400 or 500 miles from England or to Poland, Spain, Moscow, and St. Petersburg was probably the furthest. But again, just the radio, the little MP1 antenna. I've had that for a number of years. I think Vern has a booth here. He may be selling those. It's kind of a manual screwdriver, just goes up and down. And you know, the little FT817, and you can have fun. So, any more questions? Looks like a lot of people are staying awake. That's good. Go ahead.
The software-driven programs where you can speak in the microphone like Dragon and whatever, can you use that as opposed to typing? Would that work?
I don't see why not, because typically it just puts your decoded voice as text where you left the cursor.
Exactly.
So
it
should work if the programs have, quote, followed the developer's guidelines, you know. In the back?
Are there any commercial applications or public service uses for this?
Yeah, you can typically use it for public service if you want to establish a link. There's no error correction or detection with PSK-31. So if there was a dropout, you may lose a character or a couple of characters. There's some other modes, I think is it PSK-63 and some other variants that actually do some handshaking and maybe some forward error correction to help ensure that your data goes through properly. But no reason why not.
What do you use the little star in the lower right-hand corner for, the star tuner?
I don't use it for anything.
Look pretty, huh?
Yeah, back in the original PSK software, you had to tune your radio to get that to be like a vertical bar. And it kind of dances around with a lot of noise. But now with the click tuning, you just click in the waveform and you're tuned. You don't have to tune your radio really critical. Yeah, it was kind of a phase display holdover from RIDI, but really of no value. If I can bring it up here, I'll show you one other thing. Oh, it's still up. This will do. One of the things you can do is that when you're receiving somebody, like if you clicked here, and when he's not transmitting, so when he's idling, when he's trying to figure out how to spell a word or something, you just get the 2 tracks. And the software during that time will measure the intermodulation distortion and display it in this little window here. So this is an indication of how clean this other fellow's signal is. You want to be, I guess, in the 20 dB and better range. So when you're transmitting, you can tell the operator, the guy at the other end, would you please check my signal, and then stop transmitting for like 10 seconds. So the software can look at that, and so he can look at the window here and see that it's saying it's -15 or -25, and then he can give you that number back.
Randy, you said
Where should you be and what do you do about it when it tells you about your signals?
You're probably overdriving, which everybody here was pretty good this day, but when you overdrive, you'll see this signal spread out. You'll see more tracks on both the left and right side, and that's what you don't want to be doing. Turn your audio down going into the radio, and this will narrow up. Be back in that linear range.
Power setting or your transmitter, where's a good place to start?
I'd run it at, say, half power. I have run a kilowatt on PSK. I was working a few years ago, you guys familiar with the Route 66 stations, where they have stations all the way from the Pacific Ocean to Chicago along Route 66. And I had worked like 14 out of the 16. It's a 2-week thing. Once you start on this, you get addicted because you want to get them off with a nice certificate. And being in Northern California, I had a hard time working with guys in Southern California on 20 meters, and they were always on 20 meters, and they were always skipping over me. But one day there was a guy on PSK-31, part of the Route 66, so I swung the beam around and lit up the kilowatt, and bang, he came back to me and I got off the band. Because I imagine everybody's AGC's one in the toilet. But I got the certificate.
To bring it back to the IMG, you said about 20. What's good, what's bad, what's the range?
I'd have to go back and check the notes. I'd say anything 20 dB or lower is better, 20 to 30, somewhere in that range, yeah. And then you can't check yourself. You got to have the other guy do it for you. You know, people will look and say, well, I don't see anything when I'm transmitting. No, it doesn't know what your signal looks like coming out of the transmitter. That's what we care about.
Second setup wouldn't show your IMG?
No,
Too close.
no. No, you have to have the other station receive it to receive what you're doing.
Not for a second, you have the second setup to receive your own signal.
Possibly, sure, if you got another radio, yeah. Yeah, the day I did the video about setting up your transmitter levels, I thought it'd be real clever. I had my 817 I was transmitting on to a dummy load and over my TS2000. It took me hours to make that look properly. You know, I was getting too much signal overload, I was getting different distortions, and so that may or may not give you an accurate result. I spent a lot of time trying to make that look the way you would be seeing it on the air.
So there, I guess there's an idle mode where you can, the transmitter will transmit, but you're not
Yes.
sending anything.
Yep.
And then the other station, what do they detect if there's no phase changes? What is it looking at?
Hopefully nothing's printing.
Okay.
So it just stopped.
Still coming down.
Yep. Yep, the tracks, it's right here. He was not transmitting anything. He was not typing. He wasn't providing information going across. In reading in Thomas's article here, I figured out or understood why there's these two tracks. Because the, I forget which bit, I think it's the 0 bit that's being sent over and over again, and it does have the phase shift. So this is basically the spectrum of the phase shifting of the signal. It ends up being those two tracks. And so in his article in here, he talks a lot about the phase shift modulation and demodulation, the Vericode decoding. You know, if you don't get this, you can probably get one over at the ARL booth. You know, ask them for a sample copy.
Again, if everybody's on 070, how are we getting all the different frequencies here?
Because they're all transmitting a different audio frequency tone.
And that's selected by the program?
It's selected by where you click in this waterfall.
No, I mean, okay, I'm transmitting on 070, he's transmitting 070, he's transmitting 070. If we're all transmitting on the same, how does it pick up a different receiver?
Okay, so you're really not transmitting on 070. Your VFO dial is set on 070.
Okay.
You're basically transmitting a tone, which is going to offset you up from the 070. So if I send a 1 kilohertz tone, I'm not transmitting on 070, I'm transmitting on 071.
Okay.
But instead of tuning the radio to take and decode the signal, I'm going to tune the software that says, here's everything from 0 to 3,000 cycles coming through my passband if I have a wide filter. And if I click here, I'm at, say, 1,200 cycles up. That's the frequency of that tone. Now the software knows to take and decode that. And when I go to transmit, it uses that frequency to feed into your transmitter. So now I'd be transmitting on 712, let's say. So yeah, it's kind of a strange thing. I got all these signals. How does anything know what to do? And yeah.
Randy, I think another way to explain it is if you think about when you're transmitting on sideband,
Yeah.
you're using that full spectrum.
Yes.
Your voice is going to use a certain part of that spectrum. Your A's are going to hit here, your D's are going to hit over here. With PSK, you're just focusing on that one frequency
Sure.
in audio
Yeah.
out of that 2.8
Right.
spectrum of 3 kilohertz
Sure.
we have to operate in.
Mm-hmm.
So you're
Very good.
slicing up that 3
Yeah.
It'd be like singing different notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you dial your radio up to a voice frequency, you know, this will decode everything in that passband and you'll see the spectrum content of the other fellow's voice. You'll see if there's a lot of high frequency information. You can see if his lows are cut off at, 1,000 hertz or whatever. So you got basically a audio spectrum analyzer, 0 to 3 1,000 hertz in software here.
I've tried setting up a few times to receive, and I've noticed a lot of times that I just sort of abandon the pair. Is this sort of look at a signal that's too low, or is it a pilot error?
It may be too low. Do you have a direct interface, or are you doing it with a microphone? Direct interface.
I mean, it just starts giving me all kinds of random characters, like zero type.
Yeah, it could just be weak enough that it's just down in the noise. It's not able to take and decode, but you should be able to get texts, most of the time. Is it on all the stations or just some that are seeing that? Huh. Yeah, I'd have to see and play, I guess.
Opinions on external sound cards versus using the built-in sound card in the computer?
The one that's built in your computer, you probably have it. It's free. It's good enough. I've used internal sound cards without any problems. It's kind of nice to have the external box. So you got the knobs there. You can adjust the level quickly, but you're paying $100+ for the convenience of the knobs. A lot of people like the Signal Link USB. They've sold probably thousands of those because it's a separate sound card. They have the cables and little headers for every radio to plug in the back or the mic if that's how it happens to go in. So it really becomes a plug and play interface once you get the software and the sound card settings, connected so it knows to use that. But once you have that, you're up and running. So I guess it all depends what you want to do. Some people put in multiple sound cards in the radio, use one for the computer and one for the radio.
Is there any security in the encryption?
No, there's no security encryption. In fact, we're not supposed to be doing that over the air, so I think. Yeah, something over, yeah.
How far apart the computer and the rig, I think the limit of the
It's probably the length of your cable.
The audio should
Yeah.
pretty well.
Yeah.
The speed and the phase.
Yeah, but you probably want to not have real long lines because if you get RF back into it, you'll have a bunch of, so, yeah.
Total frequencies channelized, or can you choose any arbitrary also?
You can choose anywhere you want in the waterfall. Yeah, you can go and, if you want, you can click right here and go in between those guys. Or you can go over here, maybe where there's a little more room.
Just a policy queue?
Yeah. At the other end, it may not be looking like this for those other people. You never know what the propagation between different paths are. So, yeah, pick what you think is a free spot and go for it.
Has anybody ever been able to effect a phase shift in CW mode, or they have to use USB or else?
Don't know. I know some of the radios you can use the CW filter if you wanted to zero in, but it's still an audio tone that's coming out, so it should work. Transmit will probably not work because the CW mode in your transmitter is expecting on and off keying, not audio. So you can probably receive but not transmit would be my first guess.
Do you have any more handouts?
Sorry, that's so. Anyway, I think that's my time is up. I'm a couple minutes over. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was awesome.